Schoolgirls being told to respect the culture of the Muslim men who sexually assaulted them on school grounds, hand grenades going off in the streets in the middle of the night, gangland turf wars. Sounds familiar? But that's not England, and that's not even Sweden, the country to which we've become accustomed to hearing such stories. It's actually Norway, the country now where it's been found that migrants are responsible for more deaths than the mass murderer Anders Breivik. Now, this is a country that was once known for its tranquility and its calmness, but it now has contract killings as a spillover from Sweden grows. I'm joined now by Rebecca Mistereggen, a journalist who grew up in a Norwegian multicultural housing project, which she has previously called a ghetto. And she witnessed firsthand the growth of migrant crime in her neighbourhood. And she joins me now as Norway faces growing calls to finally slam its borders shut. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on to GB News and joining me on Originals. You, in a speech, have referred to mass migration to Norway not being about diversity, but actually being a threat to public safety. What did you mean by that?
So I think this is the same all over Europe and the UK. As you know, you had the grooming gangs, or the jihad, the rape jihad, as I like to call it. It is because we import people who have a different culture to ours. You know, this multicultural experiment that our politicians have been doing for years now. It's not just since 2015 or 2000. This has been going on for 30, 40 years, mind you. So it just has increased in volume over time. These people come to Europe with a different culture and a different ideology. And then on top of that, we have government that protect them because they want this experiment to actually, I don't know what the success rate is for them or what they think is the successful measure here, but they do not want to admit that this has not gone well for them, at least. And so when you look at, I'm just going to go straight to the point. When you have an ideology that glorifies violence, that glorifies death, that glorifies raping white women, then you have politicians who protect those people. Then, you know, there's the recipe for disaster is already laid out, and we have seen the consequences of this over years now.
When you say they're being protected, what do you mean?
I mean the two-tier policing and the two-tier justice system. They don't get penalties like the native populations do. They're excused with everything that they do. They didn't know better. I don't know what systematic racism is if that's not it. When you look at a group and you say, well, you know, they weren't smart enough to understand right from wrong.
So is that happening in Norway then? Have you got any examples of where that's happened in Norway?
Yes, I do actually. So there was this big case going back to last year, if I'm not mistaken, where a man was beat by a immigrant youth gang. So he asked them, he went up to his local store and he said, hey guys, can you calm down? Like, you're scaring people from entering the store and people need to do their weekend shopping, basically. They got so upset with him for correcting their behavior that they knocked him out, actually. And the police didn't really want to investigate this case. So it was media pressure that made them have to bring this case up again and investigate it. And what turned out then was that this gang has been terrorizing the entire area for a long time, with violence, threats of violence, threatening to rape the staff of the store, etc. And then, you know, they wanted in the community, they wanted to hold a parade against violence. They wanted to mark that they were against violence. They wanted the community to come together for that. And in creating this event, everything turned out, well, the left, Antifa, and the radical left in Norway went in to say, this is a right-wing extremist event, we must stop it. And so it was deemed racist to stand up against violence after an old man was knocked out in front of their local store by a gang that has terrorized the community for a long, long time.
So you also talked about before when you were younger, these kind of cases have been going on for a long time because you grew up in a mixed community, didn't you? And there was a Norwegian language course where there was some assault going on with the young girls.
Yes, so right next to my secondary school, there was a center for Norwegian language course for Afghan immigrants in particular. And so I would take the bus to school because I lived away, further away than the other students. And first of all, they would touch my hair and be kind of, I did not like them, let me just say that. But they also went in after the girls into the bathrooms because in our schoolyard, it was kind of like a big square and the toilets were underneath the gym building. So
Wait,
you
so
could
they were
act,
bringing men into your school?
well, they were right next to it. So when we had our, what do you call it? That pause in between classes and
A
everybody's just
break, yeah.
outside. Yeah. They would come into the schoolyard. They would follow girls into the toilets and they would grope their breasts. You know, when people touch you uninvitedly, like you don't invite them to touch you and they do, and you tell them to stop and they continue to do so, it's kind of creepy following after 13, 14, 15-year-old girls and doing this. And then when you tell an adult like you're supposed to, they say, well, you have to understand that these people come from a different culture. Well, no culture should ever accept groping children or adult women or men for that matter.
What
You
sort
know,
of age were these men? Do you remember?
you know what? That's really difficult to say, Nick,
Were they
because
adults?
I would say early 20s, if anything, maybe. But it's hard to say.
That almost sounds a bit, well, British people watching this will be familiar with that kind of attitude from the authorities. Do you, we talk a lot about the grooming gangs in Britain, but before they were exposed by journalists, no one thought that they were going on. No one knew about it. And I just wonder, could it be the case that grooming gangs like what were happening in the north of England could be operating in Norway, Sweden, across Europe?
I think so. Yeah. I definitely think so. I don't think that is a quote unquote UK phenomenon. I don't think that. I think that's all over the place. How big is it in different nations? I don't know. How to what extent is there a systematic rape gang going on in Norway? I do not know. I think it's if there is such a thing going on in Norway, it would be on a smaller scale. Although we have a case going on right now, which is called a Shada case. It's a Palestinian girl, actually, believe it or not, that was taken from her family by child services. And it's a lot of controversy around this case. It was 5 years ago. It's just coming up in Parliament now that she was found dead. And the claims are that she was trafficked in England, amongst other like other countries as well as Norway, and she was in the care of child services. So I don't know. Nobody knows the actual facts of the case. Like we have the death certificate and different documentation, and we know that the police own the house that she was. It's a cluster of things. So I mean, it could happen, and we know that it happens. We know that we have a bunch of rapes, that's for sure, and we know who does the raping. There's no question.
Well, yes, because I've seen before that you pointed to some stats that came out from the head of the crime unit in the police at Oslo, I think it was. And between the years of 2006 to 9, every stranger rape in Norway was committed by someone of migrant descent.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Well, it's
Yeah.
not really unbelievable, but it is kind of unbelievable.
I didn't realise, I don't think many of our viewers will realise that Norway has this problem. We hear about Sweden, but not so much about Norway. I mean, I had a look, and for every Somali man in Norway, aged between 15 to 24, according to Statistics Norway, there's more than two charges per Somali.
Yeah.
So what does that look like to the people in Norway? I mean, you're a small population, you've got a big country, so paint me a bit of a picture of what it's like to be a Norwegian right now.
So a lot of this is concentrated in the Oslo area. Like you said, we're a long country. We have a lot of land and a small population, so we're spread out all over the place. And mind you, a lot of mountains, so nobody lives there. So it's kind of, when it comes to immigration and where these people live, they live in the Oslo area and the greater Oslo area, close to the border of Sweden, close to the airport, which is kind of funny because, well, it's not really funny. It's tragic comedy, really, when we have this thing in the municipalities where when they go to give housing to asylum seekers, they try to spread them out in the country, right? And so they're put in a municipality, then they get funding for 5 years. And if they leave before the 5 years is over, then they lose some of their welfare. Okay, so they don't do that. So after 5 years has passed, they all move to the greater Oslo area. So this is where the main immigration population is, and you can tell in our capital that that's the case. I have had, not every day, but I've had a couple of times I've gone into the city either for joy in terms of going shopping and having dinner with family members or friends, or on my way to work and grabbing a coffee, where I have been the only Norwegian person that I've seen in the city center, that is, that day, which is unbelievable to me. But yeah, so they move into these areas. I know that Stovner, which is a suburb of Oslo, they're nearly half, 50% is immigrants. Is also one of the first areas that had a large immigrant population. Yeah, what does that look like? Well, it looks like hand grenades and stabbings and robberies and, that sort of thing. That's what it looks like.
And how are the authorities treating it? Are they ignoring it? Are they clamping down on it?
It's a tough question. A lot of the times they copy Sweden. Since you asked about Sweden, Sweden is bad. It's really, really bad. They have, in some areas, clan societies. And for the people that don't understand what that is Afghanistan. They're not a nation, they're a clan society. That's happening to Sweden, where there is a large population of immigrants. In some of these no-go zones, they put up a curfew a couple of years back. Well, 3 years back or so. Like, when you have gangs that can put up curfews and you refuse to send in the military, the police doesn't want to go in there. They had a lack of police officers because people just quit. They didn't want to touch it. It has turned around a bit with the new government, I must say. They're doing a great job to try to turn her around. But turning around a big ship is not an easy task. It takes time. So Sweden is really bad, and that bleeds into Norway. So we have the same clans, the same gangs operating in all our police district, in all of Norway. We have gangbangers coming over the border, seeking asylum in Norway because they're afraid of being in Stockholm, and they say so in court. They're afraid of being shot. And now we have hand grenades going off in our streets. We had, what was it, two hand grenades and a couple of shootings in close proximity, one in actually very close to where I live, and then in the city center, and there was a shooting in the greater Oslo area. And so, what do they do? Well, they try to copy Sweden. They try to copy Sweden before they try to turn the ship around. They talk about how there's not enough youth clubs. They talk about the fact that these kids need pizza. They talk about the fact that these boys that are out in gangs throwing hand grenades, they need help. We should feel sorry for them because they have small siblings at home that needs to sleep at night, so they're kicked out of their home. These are the kinds of excuses that we're given. And I know our Labour Party, which is just as doomed as yours, by the way, they could at least be twins, our prime minister and your prime minister, in terms of character. But they wanted to create new positions to follow these kids around. Can you imagine waking up in the morning to go pick up a kid and then just follow that kid around and take him to free after class activities like football or something and then take them home? Isn't that what parents are for? Well, they were going to hire parents for these children, basically. We're talking about lots of money just going straight out the window.
Well, it seems almost as though, our European societies are set up for people with a certain mindset, and especially the Nordic prison model is held up as an example for all of us. But it seems as though, well, Sweden's the point proven with this, is that it might work with a Swedish population, but you bring other people in, it's not so much about being kind, it's not so much about rehabilitation, it's not so much about filling their pockets with free money. It's actually some people have a different mindset.
Yeah, they have a different mindset. They have a different culture. They have their the core of their being is different. How they understand the world is different, and that doesn't change by setting foot on Swedish or Norwegian or British soil. I think it's time that we say that out loud and stop being so very polite about it, because it is a fact. And when talking about our prison systems, we call it criminal care. That is the Norwegian term for the prison system. Criminal care. Taste the word. That is what we do here. You go to prison in Norway, you can record your records. You can you can be a chef. They have restaurants. You have a PlayStation in your room. You have your private bathroom. There's tons of things that you can do in prison. You can take education, degrees. Like, it's a whole thing where also you can be on leave from prison. You go there to sleep, but you go out to work in the middle of the day. Like, this is our criminal care, and it is at the core of this. I would call it an ideology that you can rehabilitate people. But how do you rehabilitate a pedophile? You say that you can't convert gay people to become straight, but you can rehabilitate a pedophile? Really? Because I don't think that's the case. And when you import pedophiles and rapists and murderers, I mean, we should send them home.
And I mean, I've done a few reports over the last couple of weeks since Christmas decorations and celebrations have gone up across Europe. We've seen the nativity attacked in Amiens, France, a few other places in France. We've seen in Brussels a pro-Palestine mob was rampaging through the Christmas market. Later on, the baby Jesus was decapitated. Have we seen anything similar in Norway? Just in general, is there a hostility to Christianity that's kind of starting to appear?
Yes, there has been a hostility to Christianity for a long time here. I think we were one of the first nations to just get rid of Christianity, to be honest. It is coming back, though. Put that to the side. But yes, we have seen hostilities. There's a couple of schools that have prohibited the Christmas story from the Bible. They're not allowed to hear the message of God or the gospel of Christmas. Let me just...
And just to get that straight with a British audience, is that something that was traditionally always done in Norwegian schools?
So in Norwegian schools, we always had a Christmas service. The students has attended a Christmas service. And the thing is that if you don't want your child to attend a Christmas service, no problem. You can write a note and say, my child is not to attend Christmas service, and then they don't have to, okay? But that has changed a lot, because apparently when you have multiculturalism, it's not about necessarily everybody having their culture and expressing it. It's about suppressing the native culture and replacing it with another culture. And that is this is a great example of that, because they straight out went out and said we need to adjust our school system for Muslims. We don't want this Christmas service. It has to be something that is done outside of school. And then we have a couple of schools in Ås, in Akershus, which is a place outside of Oslo, that has prohibited the Christmas service for everybody above, let's see, only class 3 can participate in this Christmas service, but they cannot read the Gospel of Christmas. They cannot light candles. The priests shall not be addressed as a priest, but a host. And that's it, you know. And if you want your kid to attend a Christmas service, you will have to tell the school that they are to attend it.
Christian Norwegians are still the majority, right? So these are big changes to enforce on the majority population.
Yeah. Also, take away the Christmas songs. You're not allowed to sing about Jesus or Christmas. They changed it's not called a Christmas market. It's called Winter Wonderland or Winter Market. You know, all of these like smaller things that they do to the language to erase Christmas. Pretty much the same thing that they do to women when we talk about gender and all that stuff. Like that they're doing to Christmas what they're doing to women, basically, erasing it. So
Yeah.
in with the language, that is.
You mentioned your open border with Sweden and how some of the crime is coming over. You also have open borders to the whole of the EU, and Ursula von der Leyen has basically tacitly now started saying that she wants to increase the safe and legal routes for migrants to come into the EU. Is there widespread concern in Norway about what that could mean for you guys?
I don't think any media outlet has even talked about that, actually. What is being talked about here in Norway is that both Denmark and Sweden are using they want to use third countries for their asylum seekers and migrants. So that if you are to apply for residence or asylum or anything like that to come into Norway or Sweden or Denmark, that you have to go to Rwanda or Albania or wherever they put up this system. That has been frowned upon for 2 decades, I think it is. The Progressive Party has put this forth to say that we need a third country to handle all of these applications because we need to vet who we take in and not. And it has always been deemed racist to say so. But now that Denmark and Sweden are doing it, Norway has turned the coin. They want to join in as well because you know what's going to happen, especially if Ursula von der Leyen puts up a route, is that all of these people that cannot get into Denmark or to Sweden, they want to come to Norway. So we have to join in on that, which is good. I think there's other ways to go about it, but it's good that we do that. We're already the country in Scandinavia taking the most migrants because both Denmark and Sweden has limited the amount of immigrants that they take in. So yeah, we haven't really heard much about Ursula's plans here in terms of the media coverage. So I don't think a lot of people are aware of what's going on.
And you obviously cover you cover a lot of the migrant crime problem in Norway, Sweden. How are you treated? How are people on the right or conservatives who are concerned about immigration? How are you treated in your country?
Well, we're treated the same way as you are in other countries. We're cancelled and called racists and Nazis. And I don't know, my nickname, I think, on the radical left is Botox Barbie or Botox Nazi, Barbie Nazi, something like that. And, you know, like, I don't care. Honestly, I don't care. We're so way past the slurs and people being resistant to fact it doesn't hold anymore. The slurs doesn't hold anymore. You can see more and more people are aware of what's going on. You know, when hand grenades go off in your neighborhood, something shifts. And I think it's really almost hysterically funny that these people that attend this college where this hand grenade happened in Oslo city center, the Met University, they wanted to, they came out with suggestions, this student union, that you should move these criminal kids, should spread them out in the country because they can't just be all in one place. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Like, you chose to live there, you have invited this to your town, and now all of a sudden it's not racist to say that you want to send them home. Don't put them in other people's neighborhoods and make them other people's problems. Like,
do they ever say why they're so pro-migration?
No. I think that's a mass psychosis of the West, Nick. That is the mass psychosis. You've been trained to dislike yourself, to to carry a burden that you don't really know what the burden is, but you're carrying a burden, and the only way to relieve that burden is to dislike yourself and give away your nation. That's like overall, that's how I see it.
Right. And you mentioned that there's talks of, well, there's offshore processing policies going through Denmark and Sweden. They're members of the ECHR. The debate in the UK is largely, we can't do any of this because we're a member of the ECHR. So how are they getting around it?
I don't know yet, actually, to answer your question. I have no idea how they're going to do it, but it is kind of funny to me if I post something opposing the EU, people get really frustrated, like, you're not even a member. We are in the EEA, the economic agreement with the EU, but we're also a resource colony for the EU. And what does that mean? Well, that means that we pay the EU to give away our resources to the EU. That's what we're doing over here. And we're also the best member state, without being a member state, in the class of implementing directives from the EU. So we might not formally be a member state, but we are the best member state the EU has.
Is there a movement to just leave that altogether then, if you consider yourselves an energy colony?
Yes, there is. There is an organization that is called No to the EU. There is also political parties that wants to leave the EEA agreement altogether and take a Swiss approach to things.
Not a British approach, I suppose, because ours has been such a bad example.
Very bad. And I think that even though it's bad, you're still in a better position than us somehow. I know that they wanted to do a similar agreement to Norway for the UK, but thankfully you escaped.
Where so much now of our political discourse in all of our countries relies on us being able to use social media platforms, X, YouTube, anyone who speaks out of turn is very liable to being shadow banned. And I saw that you put a post on recently about how some of your Twitter, your X, has been suppressed. And you criticise Islam a lot. And you'd asked Grok whether it was acceptable to criticise Islam and whether it was acceptable to criticise Christianity. And you got different answers, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And it is concerning because criticizing Islam is apparently hate speech, but criticizing Christianity is apparently not. So you can get penalty for criticizing Islam, but you don't get penalty for criticizing Christianity. And I think, in terms of being equal to the law, this is a big problem.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving us that little bit of a snapshot into what's going on in Norway.
Thank you so much for having me on, Nick. It was a pleasure.